So the 10 years since the horrific events at Sandy Hook have been punctuated by moments of darkness, but also moments of light. And while every year on the anniversary of Newtown, Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy delivers a speech on the Senate floor decrying America's gun violence problem, this year he expressed some optimism about what has been done and what's ahead.
What we communicated this summer to those kids and to parents is that we care. Our answer isn't nothing, right? And so as much as I experienced this as a father, I also know that we've made progress, and that progress has been logistical and practical, but it's also been metaphysical. It's been emotional. What we did this summer just gave kids in this country, parents in this country, a little bit of a feeling that, right, we're going to be there for them, and hopefully more in the future.
Joining us now is the Democratic Senator from Connecticut, Chris Murphy. Senator, thanks for joining me tonight. I think it's really important that this conversation be different than the traditional conversation on gun safety and gun violence, which is to say, let us talk about the points of optimism. And I want to start there with you first. What are you feeling good and I would say best about when it comes to gun violence in this country and the progress we're making on that issue?
Well, Alex, thanks for having me on. I think today, on this 10-year mark of Sandy Hook, the thing that I feel best about is the difference that the families have made. Those families in Sandy Hook, many of them became politically active, and they're responsible in part for the success that we had this summer. But they've also started up charitable organizations, not-for-profits, that have just sought to make their community's life better. And so there's a lot of good that has come from those families. That's what makes me optimistic today. But as I said today in my speech, it is true that finally, 10 years later, we have built a movement to make our schools and our communities safer that is now more powerful than the gun lobby. In 2013, the year after Sandy Hook, we lost a bill trying to strengthen our gun laws. This summer, we passed a comprehensive measure that, as we speak, is saving lives. And I feel like we are entering a period of time now where the anti-gun violence movement is going to win consistently at the federal level and at the state level. We've had 500 different laws passed tightening our nation's firearms statutes at the state level. So I stand here today, it's painful to think back as to what happened 10 years ago. It's hurtful for those families to know that it took 10 years for Congress to act in a meaningful way. But I think we're entering a moment in which we are going to be able to get consistent wins to make our country safer. And that's a credit, first and foremost, to many of those families from Sandy Hook who have become part of this movement, leaders in this movement, even amidst their deep sorrow and grief.
Senator, in your remarks on the floor today, you were invoking parenthood. And I know you had little kids at the time of Newtown who are now adolescents. And children, students, have been at the forefront of so much of the activism around gun safety. I wonder what your own kids, what is the conversation at home with a father who represents the state of Connecticut, site of one of the most horrific tragedies as far as school shootings? Do they think that you/the upper chamber have done enough? Do they feel the same optimism that you do?
So I think part of the reason why we were able to break through this summer is because Republicans and Democrats went back to their states after Uvalde and Buffalo and really saw a level of anxiety and fear that they'd never seen before. Parents were just absolutely beside themselves, thinking about the idea that even after Uvalde and Sandy Hook, that Congress is going to do nothing. And it was really a test of democracy in some ways, which is why I think we got just enough Republicans to step up and help us. As a parent, obviously, I experienced this through my kids, and I think every kid deals with it differently. My older child tonight was just talking about sort of what it feels like to walk through metal detectors every day when he walks into his middle school. And he's I just think he's used to it at this point. But my younger son, when he went through his first active shooter drill as a kindergartner, it rattled him. He didn't know exactly why it was happening, but he knew enough to tell me, Daddy, I just didn't like that, being packed into a bathroom like sardines with 26 of his classmates. I think every kid reacts differently to it, but many of them are going through trauma because they walk into school every day and they fear for their lives. And for those kids, we owe it to them to try to change that daily existence.
What of the bipartisan gun safety bill that President Biden signed into law this summer? I know that you and some of your colleagues have been briefed on how that law is working. Can you tell us anything about the measurable difference it may or may not be making?
So I got a really compelling briefing from the Department of Justice about 2 weeks ago on the implementation of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. No, it doesn't do everything we want. It's not universal background checks. It's not a ban on assault weapons. But the Department of Justice staffers who came in, and these weren't, presidential appointees. These were the folks that implement the background checks laws. They were really excited to tell me about this bill because they had evidence that it had saved lives. They had stopped people from buying weapons that clearly were dangerous, that were threatening harm against themselves or others because of this law. We now have a much more substantial background check for younger purchasers of firearms. We don't sell guns to any domestic abusers any longer. We're helping states implement red flag laws. This is the law that allows states to take guns away temporarily from people who actually have made threats against a school or threats against themselves. And what I learned is that just in the first few weeks of implementation, lives have been saved. So, of course, we have a lot more to do, but we should be proud of the fact that this movement, that so many just rank and file regular Americans have helped to build, got a bill passed this summer that is absolutely stopping mass shootings, homicides, and suicides literally as we speak.